I said no. 500 people clapped slowly, and Caleb's hand fell on my cheek like a sentence. Sound stuttered in the ceiling speakers as if the room itself forgot the next note. The chandelier above us trembled, throwing a scatter of light across crystal and chrome. Sloane still held the microphone like a scepter, her smile lacquered and steady under the cameras. "After the honeymoon, we will move into Harper's penthouse," she had said. And the crowd, boat shoes, sequins, rented tuxedo bravado, had done what crowds do. It applauded the story it was given. I stood because there was nothing else left upright inside me. I never agreed. The sentence left my mouth clean and flat, and that was enough for Caleb to close the distance, to lean in with the warm fog of champagne and say, "Don't embarrass the family," before his palm cracked the air and my face at the same time. The glass beside my plate jumped, toppled, burst, shards blinking like a burst of tiny camera flashes on the floor. I didn't flinch. Not outwardly. The military taught me how to hold still while noise tried to move you. Microphones kept recording. Somewhere a violinist faltered and pretended to retune. Darla made the small sound she kept for dirty laundry on clean days. Ron stared at the centerpiece. And Sloane, rosy and immaculate, kept her smile where the cameras could see it. "Miscommunication," she cooed into the mic, angling her body to hide me from the room as if I were a bad angle. "My sister is modest." "My answer is no," I said, louder, because truth has to be audible before it can be admissible. The event cameraman's lens found the chandelier instead of my face, and I watched its crystals quiver like nerves. I turned away, the way you do when a line is finally drawn and the only direction left is out. Carpet swallowed the sound of my heels until marble in the lobby gave my steps back to me. Portland pressed its evening against the hotel glass, wet, perfumed with white flowers and rain that couldn't decide whether to fall. "Just not in front of everyone," Sloane said, sliding between me and the revolving door. Her voice dropped to the confidential register public people use when they want a private outcome. One nod, and this is over. I don't sign contracts by clapping. I didn't raise my voice. I just took back my space. Her smile strained at one corner, the way ribbon frays when it's pulled too tight, and she stepped aside because there was nowhere else for the moment to go. Outside, the valet canopy thudded with soft rain. A driver opened a taxi door and the city's reflections broke and reformed along the car's flank. I slid into the back seat, set my bag beside me, and unlocked my phone. Fingers steadier than my cheek sent a subject line that read like a hinge. Immediate access restriction, Unit HL 32F. In the body, I wrote the bones of a boundary. No visitors permitted without prior written consent. All deliveries held at desk. Temporary suspension of guest credentials until further notice. Retain and preserve video from lobby and elevator banks for the next 7 days. I asked for acknowledgement and for a copy of the building's incident report form. I attached my ID. I added a line that mattered to me more than to them. All requests regarding my residence must be in writing. Send. The message left my screen with a small, competent sound. I watched rain beads race each other down the glass. The taxi moved and Portland's bridges lit their long, careful spines over the river. The hotel elevator in my building always smells faintly of cedar and cold metal. Back in my room, I rinsed my face in water that bit. The skin stung, then went quiet. I took the laptop to the window and laid it on the sill, where the city became a grid of chosen lines. The email I had just sent sat in my outbox like a brick. I opened a black notebook, wrote, "Willoughby, initial incident," and started the timeline. 1902, false declaration over open mic. 1904, verbal refusal. 1905, assault, open hand, witnessed by guests, recorded by event audio. 1907, attempted coercion in lobby, just nod. 1925, access restriction request submitted to HOA/management. Facts before feelings, That's how you build something that stands when weather comes. I could still hear the brittle hush that had fallen over the reception, the champagne glass breaking, the tiny intake of breath when the facade slipped and the ugly geometry of entitlement showed through. I pictured Sloane's eyes, polished stone, no drag, and Caleb's jaw clenched like he could bite the evening back into place. A family that loves appearances will always try to fix the lighting before they fix the truth. My phone buzzed against the sill. I didn't touch it. I checked the deadbolt, then sat again, thumbs hovering over the screen, then dropping away. The first lessons they teach you about risk are boring. Procedures, logs, checklists. Boredom is where safety lives. I drafted a second email, short, procedural, to the concierge desk. Please confirm receipt of the restriction notice. Please note any attempt by Caleb Lane or Sloane Mercer to access my unit. Please request ID for any individual claiming familial permission. If such an attempt occurs, kindly generate an incident report and notify me immediately. I attached copies of their photos from public sources. If truth needs to be admissible, it also needs to be specific. Rain thickened. A siren went by, warbling itself smaller down the block. I thought, briefly, about calling Caleb. I set an alarm that wasn't for sleep, but for the hour I'd send a follow-up if no acknowledgement came. I wrote the same 3 words twice on a Post-it and stuck it to the bezel of my screen. Keep receipts. The phone face up now, I finally swiped to the messages. 2 previews sat there like opposing verdicts. I tapped the email first. Then, because there's only so long you can avoid a voice that raised you, I tapped the text. Mom's text. You humiliated your brother in front of 500 people. HOA email responds immediately. Request to limit visitors noted. Confirms permission to save camera. 9:07 a.m. I swiped my card into the lobby and saw 2 suitcases roll straight into the marble, before my honeymoon. Beep. Gate accepted my badge. Another beep when the inner door unlocked. The marble was still cool from night air. Javier glanced up from the desk. Then his eyes cut past me to the revolving door where Caleb and Sloane were already pushing a pair of glossy suitcases over the threshold, like they were docking at a hotel. We're family, Caleb announced to the room, voice pitched for bystanders. Just staying for a bit. Sloane added a small, polished laugh, the kind used to soften claws. Hopper's generous. We talked. Carla stepped out from the back office before I answered. Quick, concise, tablet in hand. Written authorization, please, she said, signed by the unit owner. I took 2 steps to the desk and kept my hands visible on the counter. There's no authorization, I said to Carla. Refuse access, log the attempt. Save all camera feeds from exterior, lobby, and elevator banks. Beep. A delivery badge tried the side gate and failed. Beep. The rhythm tapped the edges of my nerves and settled there. Sloane parked her smile on Carla. This is silly. Verbal permission works in families. You can't even feel it. I feel it every time someone tries to take it, I said. Sloane pivoted toward the camera dome in the ceiling. Is that even on? She asked, still smiling. It is, Carla said, and the footage is preserved. The silence after that was surgical. Sloane recovered first. Coffee? She suggested, like a pivot could erase a record. Neutral ground. Outside the building, I said. We met near the Willamette an hour later. Portland wore its daylight like a glazed finish, the river fat and indifferent. We took a table by the window. She ordered tea she wouldn't drink. I kept my hands on my cup, the heat settling my fingers the way weight settles a paper. You know this is about family, Sloane began. About starting one. People pull together at times like this. They also read leases at times like this, I said. And policies. And public records. She tilted her head. We just need a bridge. 6 months. Maybe less. "A bridge into my legal address," I said, "with your names and your luggage." She exhaled through her nose, a controlled vent. Caleb's had issues with a landlord. These things happen. People misunderstand. We're working on it. I've heard there's a do not approve list attached to his name with at least one private lender, I said. That doesn't happen by misunderstanding. Her eyes didn't blink. You've always been cold. I've always been specific. Your mother is devastated, she said, as if a mother's feelings were an injunction. You embarrassed him. He embarrassed himself, I said, and you wrote the script. The tea cooled between us. Outside, a jogger's reflection slid along the glass behind Sloane's shoulder. She tried a softer register. You're strong, Harper. You don't need all that space. We do. I already told you no, I said. Nothing about my answer changes in a coffee shop. She left a bill under her cup and a parting line under the bill. You're making enemies of your own people. Back at my office, the building air felt honest, too cool, too bright. I put my bag down. I pulled a blank USB from the drawer and labeled it by hand. Lobby/elevators, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I emailed Javier a request to export and hold the relevant clips. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji and the words, "Copy in progress." I asked Carla for the incident ticket number and a PDF copy. It hit my inbox before I closed the tab. The anonymous email arrived 5 minutes later. Subject line: Concerning behavior. The body: Old soldiers are explosive. Is your firm aware of Ms. Lane's anger issues? My hand didn't shake. I flagged it, printed it, forwarded it to compliance with one sentence. I believe this is part of a pattern of harassment connected to an ongoing attempt to access my residence without permission. Supporting documentation attached. Then I attached the documentation. Incident ticket, photo IDs, the HOA restrictions email, a log of dates and times. I hit send and watched the trail form behind me like footprints drying. Compliance acknowledged receipt and booked me for an internal interview the next morning. Neutral room, 30 minutes. Bring any supporting documents you have. I looked up at the ceiling tiles and counted 3 breaths before going back to the list. I called a notary, found one in the building next door, walked across with my folder and my ID. In the lobby, a child was smashing a sticky hand against a pane of glass, delighted by the thwack. Inside the notary's small office, the tray smelled like fresh toner and dust. The clerk watched me sign the HOA no authorization notice and pressed the seal into the paper so hard the table shivered. I took a photo of the raised stamp. I sent the scanned copy to the HOA and CC'd Carla and Javier. Subject: No authorization. Owner record. Body: Effective immediately. No person is authorized to access my unit in my absence. All requests must be in writing. Any verbal claims of permission are false. Attached, notarized notice. As each email left the screen, the knot in my chest unwound by a loop and tightened again by another. Beep. My phone. Compliance. Confirmed for 9:30 tomorrow. Please bring any additional material. I added the appointment to my calendar and then added a separate reminder to breathe. At 3:12 p.m., Javier sent me the footage. I watched the morning again from a higher angle. Rotating door, 2 suitcases. The way Sloane looked up at the camera and smiled at it, as if it were a person she was about to charm. The way Caleb's foot knocked the velvet rope. The neat choreography of refusal. The printer spitting the incident ticket like a receipt for dignity. I saved the files to the USB and to a locked folder, then wrote down the chain in my notebook. Source: Building system. Exported by Javier Ortiz, concierge. Date, time, device. Hash value auto-generated by the export utility. I printed that too and slid it into the sleeve with the ticket. The day burned down. The light across my desk got that late afternoon weight that makes paper look more expensive. I called Darla and let her voicemail pick up, then didn't leave one. I typed a single sentence to Ron and erased it. I am not a crisis communications firm for strangers' choices, least of all my family's. At 5:40, compliance pinged again. We've also received an external anonymous complaint referencing violent tendencies. Please be prepared to address. I replied, I will. I included a screenshot of the smear email sent to me and the timestamp of the lobby incident. Facts touching facts. Let paper meet paper. On my way out, I stopped at the concierge desk and thanked Carla and Javier. Carla slid a hard copy incident printout into a clear sleeve and handed it to me like a medal. We've got your back, she said. Not warm, firm. Outside, the air had that metallic taste cities get right before rain. I walked without a goal for 3 blocks and then sat on a bench I'd never noticed. I watched people not noticing one another. I watched a dog decide who was worth barking at and who wasn't. The world kept its own log. Back home, I lined the materials on the kitchen island. USB, printouts, the notarized notice, the email chain. I took a picture of the spread for my records and for the part of my brain that only trusts what it can see. I filed everything in a red folder labeled Access Attempts. I made a second folder labeled Smear. I made a third labeled Legal. The apartment hummed the soft hum of things working. I stood by the window and let my eyes unfocus until the skyline became a graph with rising lines. The beep in the lobby earlier kept echoing in my head. Clean, neutral, final. The sound of a rule doing its job. My phone vibrated against the countertop. A text from Delaney. No preamble, just an image and a line of text. I tapped it open and let the screenshot fill the screen. Then I read the caption beneath, exactly once, and felt the grid inside me click another notch tighter. Delaney texts the screenshot. An LLC named Sloan just popped up on a friend's profile. Cash flow clue. My lawyer said, don't tell the feelings. Tell the facts. The colder, the better. Natalie pushed a legal pad across the glass table until it touched my knuckles. Behind her, a whiteboard ran the length of the wall, already gridded into columns. Event, evidence, witness, outcome. She uncapped a marker with her teeth and drew a vertical line between evidence and witness, a bright seam that felt like a suture. Start at the microphone, she said. False declaration, I said. Open mic. Captured on the event audio. She wrote, Willoughby announcement, audio/video. Then, witness, Judge Rowe, present. Next. Refusal, I said. Verbal, audible, slap. She added without looking up. Assault, witnessed. Video probable. The marker squeaked. She didn't ask if I was okay. She asked if the camera angle would show his hand. Hacking attempt? She prompted. Not hack, I said. Physical access attempt. Lobby. 2 suitcases. Request to enter without authorization. Refused. Logged. Carla Morales and Javier Ortiz on duty. Incident ticket issued. Cameras preserved. She wrote it in a line that felt like a road. Threat? I slid a printout across the table. Subject, let's be adults. The paragraph that toggled between insults and charm. Then the sentence that mattered. If you don't reconsider, we may have to bring up certain personal details to your clients and coworkers. Natalie leaned forward, reading with the patience people reserve for instructions that could explode. She wrote, threatening email, extortion tone. Then she drew an arrow to outcome and wrote, grounds for protective order. And the anonymous smear, I said. Old soldiers are explosive. Sent to my firm, I added the timestamp. I added the way compliance had booked me for an internal interview. Good, she said, meaning good that we could prove a pattern. She made a box around the word pattern until the marker bled at the corners. Witnesses. Judge Rowe for the wedding, Carla and Javier for the lobby. We'll subpoena the event videographer if necessary. She flipped the legal pad to a blank page and wrote my address in block letters at the top, then underlined it twice. Goal, she said. Temporary protective order. Immediate. Emergency hearing. Facts, I said back to her, as if we were counting cadence. Facts, she agreed. Now finances. I passed her my phone. Delaney's message filled the screen, a screenshot of a banking interface captured by a friend of a friend who shouldn't have looked but did. The sender field read, Halden Mercer Ventures, LLC. The recipient was an account in Sloane's name. The memo line? Bridge until move-in. HLPH address. The date matched yesterday's lobby attempt. Natalie's face didn't change, but the marker stopped squeaking. Forward the image to my secure inbox, she said, already writing HMV LLC Arrow SM Act, memo, bridge, HLPH. She underlined move-in and circled the address. This memo goes to intent, she said. It ties the money to the place and the time. Who is Halden Mercer? Caleb and Sloane both on paper? Halden, Caleb's surname. Mercer, hers, I said. Delaney's note says it's newly formed. Light footprint, a few wires, no retail activity. Shell behavior, Natalie said. Not proof of wrongdoing by itself, but together with the memo and the attempt to occupy. She drew 3 dots and then a bracket, binding the day before, the morning of, and the money into one thought. We will not say fraud today. We will say pattern and risk and intent. We called Delaney on speaker. She answered mid-breath. It's real, she said without preamble. Timestamp lines up. My friend's roommate works at a private lender and flagged Caleb months ago. They've got him on an internal do not approve list. For credit, for bridge loans, the whole thing. Write me a declaration, Natalie said. Short. You are not attesting to anything beyond what you saw and when. Attach the image. No adjectives. No adjectives, Delaney said. Copy. Natalie drew another box on the whiteboard and wrote, Delaney, declaration plus exhibit. Then she made a final column titled Ask and wrote, TRO, ex parte if possible. Emergency hearing date. Service by counsel only. Back at my office, compliance had turned a conference room into a neutral zone. Pale carpet, pitcher of water, chairs that sighed when you sat down. The officer across from me kept his hands folded like a chapel. We received an anonymous complaint, he said. 2, actually. One references the wedding incident. One references alleged violent tendencies. This is routine. We want to be thorough. Of course, I said, and slid the packet across. The incident ticket from the lobby, the HOA restriction email, the smear email to my firm, a printout of the threatening "let's be adults" note, and a short statement on letterhead explaining the attempted access and my refusal. I included a bullet list of timestamps, and next to each bullet a reference to a piece of evidence. He read in silence, pen hovering, the way surgeons hover a moment before they cut. We'll need to talk to your manager, he said at last. You should, I answered. I've already notified him. The meeting was clinical and left no scar I could see. I returned to my desk to a message that felt like a punch under the ribs. From my manager. A-list client is pausing their contract pending the outcome of our review. It's not a termination, they just want clarity. I stared at the screen until the words lost their outlines and then came back into focus. I typed a reply. Understood. Please note, the review includes documented harassment by the parties attempting to access my residence, supporting evidence attached. I hit send. I sat very straight and listened to my own breath as if it were a metronome that could keep the rest of the song together. Natalie called at 2:07. I filed, she said. Temporary protective order ex parte. I asked for an emergency hearing. Judge availability looks good for later this week. We'll know within the hour. What do you need from me? Witness confirmations and clean copies, she said. Judge Rowe, do you have contact? I had a number. I had kept it out of politeness once. I used it now for a better reason. Judge Rowe's assistant answered on the second ring, recognized my name before I finished my sentence, and said, "We were at the Willoughby." I saw what I saw. Send the subpoena. The judge will make time. When I told Natalie, she wrote the word credible in the margin and circled it.
She emailed me the draft timeline to review. Willoughby declaration, verbal refusal, assault, lobby attempt, incident ticket, cameras, threatening email, anonymous smear, financial transfer with move-in memo, professional harm, client pause, ask, TRO, and restricted contact. At the bottom, she had typed a sentence that read like doctrine. We are not escalating a family disagreement. We are documenting unlawful boundary violations and demonstrating risk. In the late afternoon, the glass in Natalie's office darkened to a mirror, and I found myself reflected beside the ink and the boxes and the arrows. I thought of the chandelier shaking above the wedding crowd, how the crystals caught light and then let it go. Facts do the same thing when you hold them up correctly. Sign here, Natalie said, tapping the declaration attached to my petition. And here, and initial. There, I signed and initialed. My name looked steadier than I felt. She scanned, saved, filed, and then sat back like a runner at the line. Now we wait 30, she said. Maybe less. We filled the minutes with preparation. Call scripts if Caleb or Sloan tried to contact me directly. Instructions for the building if they showed up again. A short list of phrases designed to keep me from saying anything useful to provocations. Please direct all communication through counsel. I do not consent. This is a documented matter. She wrote them on a card and handed it to me to carry in my wallet, an index-sized shield. Her phone chimed. She read the message, and something eased at the corners of her mouth. Emergency hearing set, she said. Thursday, 9 a.m. Bring the incident ticket, the USB, the emails, Delaney's declaration, and clean printouts of everything. Wear something with pockets. Pockets? For the card, she said, tapping the phrases. And for your hands. I walked back to my car with the folder snug under my arm. The evening wind had the feel of paper turning. My phone buzzed once. I let it. Then it buzzed again, and I took it out. Because discipline isn't denial, it's triage. Carla calls. They're back with the truck. Camera snapshot. Cardboard box marked master bedroom. Photo from the camera pops up on my phone. Cardboard box labeled master bedroom. In the corner of the photo is a red line. Owner approval? No. The lobby doors breathed open, and the beeps came too fast. Once for the outer vestibule, twice for the inner. Then a staccato series as someone leaned too long on the reader. The sound put its finger on my pulse and pressed. On the security dashboard, the chandelier from the wedding existed only as a smear of reflected light. An amber warning. Not pretty now, just bright. Caleb stood beside a rental truck idling at the curb. Sloan wore a daytime version of ceremony. Immaculate blazer, hair shellacked to obedience, smile tuned for witnesses. Two movers hovered behind them with a dolly stacked high, pillows vacuum-sealed in plastic, a lamp wrapped in blue moving blankets, and that box. The one shouting a room that wasn't theirs. Verbal agreement, Sloan announced, as if reading a policy. We're moving essentials while paperwork catches up. Paperwork doesn't chase lies, I said. I set a folder on the concierge counter and slid out the notarized HOA no authorization notice. The notary seal flashed like a coin. This is on record. No access. No deliveries to my unit. No guests without written consent. Carla held the notice up, reading the raised stamp with her thumb. Copy received, she said for the camera, voice clean as glass. We'll log this. Javier pivoted the monitor so the fisheye feed showed everything. Truck, movers, Sloan's theater of patience, Caleb's jaw where anger set up camp. He clicked open the incident form, and the printer started its crisp cough. The beeps punctuated it. The rhythm felt like a countdown.
Harper, Caleb said as if my name were a pry bar. Come on. We're family, Sloane added, softer for the people watching. We're parties to an incident, I said, and we're on camera. Carla stepped forward so her shoulder blocked theirs from the badge reader. You are not authorized, she said. Please step back from the controlled area. One mover shifted the dolly. The topmost box, master bedroom, tilted, then blinked a corner of paper like a white eyelid. When the mover dropped it back flat, a folder slid out and skated across the marble. It spun to a stop at my shoe. Javier bent. He didn't open it. He lifted it between two fingers like evidence and said, Document on the ground. He placed it on the desk blotter. Carla pulled a tamper-evident envelope from a drawer, peeled the strip, and slid the folder inside. She wrote the incident number across the flap in block letters, then stamped the date and minute.
Chain starts here, she said, and her voice lost even the idea of warmth. Hold on, Sloane said a little too fast. That's private. It's on the floor of a common area, Carla said, involved in an access dispute. It's evidence until it isn't. I watched my hand sign the receipt line. Harper Lane, receiving party for transfer to council. Javier photographed the envelope with the desk camera, the clock behind it, the logbook line where our names were already drying. I took my phone and shot the same 3 angles: envelope, stamp, signatures. Then I took a fourth of Sloane's face when she realized paper had turned on her. Natalie joined by speakerphone, her voice coming thin but pointed from the countertop. Describe the document without opening, she said. Carla read the label on the folder. Lease, HL32F, Term 12, MOS. Signature block shows Harper Lane, scan quality, she added, careful to say what she saw and nothing more. Good, Natalie said. Seal. Harper, you'll courier that to my office immediately. We'll preserve chain of custody and file supplementation. Caleb took a half step forward. The beeps scolded him. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, he said. It's exactly the size you made it, I said. You brought a truck. We did the handoff in full view of the camera. Carla to me to the building's courier service, who signed his own line under ours and slipped the envelope into a rigid mailer with a security stripe. I photographed that too. The number on the stripe, the courier's badge. Paper loved numbers. I gave it as many as I could. By late afternoon, I was in a different neutral room, the kind with chairs that tried not to take sides. Compliance had their packet open to the page with, Old soldiers are explosive. The officer read aloud the subject line of the threatening email with, Let's be adults, and then read the sentence that mattered. He placed the printed lobby logs beside it and the courier receipt beside that, and rested his palms on either side like bookends. We're investigating the anonymous complaints, he said, but I need you to know, this shows a different kind of pattern. A documented one, I said. I kept my voice at the temperature of the room. 2 access attempts, false public statements, a threat to my professional reputation. Today, a truck and a sealed envelope. He nodded to the recorder. For the record, we've received copies of the HOA restriction, the notarized no authorization, the incident logs, the camera stills, and photographs of a sealed folder recovered in the lobby and transferred to council. Plus the emails, I said, and slid the printouts across. I see them, he said. He underlined the dates lightly with his pen, the line just pressure, no ink. We'll include this in our internal file. Please continue to forward any contact from these parties directly to us. Council will handle contact, I said, and placed Natalie's index card on the table as if to prove it. Please direct all communication through council. I do not consent. This is a documented matter. Outside the compliance room, the office had the sound of people finishing their workday. I walked the hallway slower than usual so my head could catch up with my hands.
When the elevator sighed open, my phone buzzed inside my pocket. Natalie's text. Enough grounds for a temporary protective order. I'm going to request an emergency hearing. I didn't smile. I exhaled. The doors whispered shut, and in the stainless steel, I saw myself in duplicate, face steady, shoulders square, a sealed envelope reflected under my arm even though I'd already sent it. Back in the lobby at home, Carla slid a copy of the incident report across the counter. We logged the truck, she said. Plate, make, time on site. Also 2 calls from a blocked number asking about move-in logistics.
We didn't answer questions.
Thank you, I said. My cheek didn't remember Caleb's hand anymore. My muscles did. How to hold posture while everything around you tried to become fog. Through the glass, the truck was gone. The dolly's rectangles of dust remained where rubber had paused. Javier wiped them away with a single stroke and then lifted the rag so I could see it. Proof, then clean. I took the elevator up and set my phone on the counter where the evening sun could warm it. A calendar alert slid across the lock screen, plain as a court clerk's voice. The court calendar popped up. Hearing, Thursday, 9 a.m. Shortly afterward, Caleb texted, "If you drag your family to court, don't expect to be family anymore." The judge asked, "Do you feel unsafe?" I replied, "I'm not afraid of violence. I'm afraid of people thinking they have the right to live in my life." Cold light pooled on the tables. Natalie laid the checklist from our whiteboard in front of her like a runway. Event, evidence, witness, outcome. The recorder's red dot winked. Judge McClure waited without blinking, hands folded, patience the shape of a gavel before it falls. "Proceed," he said. We began where narratives try to hide, the beginning. Natalie called up the wedding video. Microphone hiss, clink of glass. Sloane in white saying clearly, "After the honeymoon, we will move into Harper's penthouse." The audio did not flinch. Then my refusal, audible. Then Caleb's hand crossing the frame and my head turning with it. An intake of breath in the courtroom, collective, then stillness. "Next," the judge said. Lobby attempt 1. Natalie slid printouts. The incident ticket, the log, a still from the dome camera with timestamp and badge reader status. Policy requires written authorization. None was provided. Carla and Javier's names were typed neat as rails along the bottom. Lobby attempt 2. The truck outside. The box marked master bedroom. The badge reader beeps close enough to see on the waveform. Owner approval? No, in red in the corner of the frame. And during that attempt, Natalie said, a document fell to the lobby floor. "Which document?" opposing counsel asked, already pinching the bridge of his nose like empathy was eyewear. "A purported lease," Natalie said. She did not look up. "Sealed on scene, signed across flap by Ms. Morales. Incident number and time stamped, photographed, transferred to my custody by courier. Chain of custody exhibits A through D. We did not open it at counsel table. We handed it up sealed and let the clerk do the unsealing under the judge's eyes. A plastic crackle, then paper breathing. My scanned signature, a gray imitation of my hand, watched me from the page like a printed lie. Natalie did not flinch. "We do not argue forgery today," she said evenly. "We simply note that the signature block is a scan and that the purported lease appears in the context of 2 access attempts and a continuing pattern of pressure." She stacked the next layer. The email with the subject, "Let's be adults," and the line that mattered, read aloud. "If you don't reconsider, we may have to bring up certain personal details to your clients and coworkers." Then the anonymous smear to my firm. "Old soldiers are explosive." She added my company's compliance notice and the confirmation that a 7-figure client had paused business pending internal review.
Opposing counsel found his voice. "Weddings are stressful," he said. "Families misunderstand each other. There's no ongoing danger here, only hurt feelings, and perhaps some overzealous preparations to help a young couple get started. My clients seek reconciliation. They are sorry for any upset." "Independent witnesses," Natalie said, as if she had not heard the word reconciliation. "Your Honor, Judge Rowe is present." Rowe took the stand in a posture that made the air better. He recited the wedding scene in spare verbs: heard, saw, observed. He identified Caleb's hand and Sloane's sentence. "No ambiguity," he said. "The declaration about the penthouse was false. The slap was intentional." Carla followed, precise as a level. She explained the building's policy, the refusal, the logs, the cameras. Javier testified to what fell from the box and to the steps taken to seal and mark the folder. No adjectives, just timestamps and signatures. Sloane cried cleanly when it was her turn. "We just wanted a roof," she said. "A place to begin." I thought Harper had said. She looked at the ceiling so the tears wouldn't wash the performance away. Caleb stared at the defense table as if there were a script engraved in the oak. "We'll be brief," Natalie said. She slid a final sheet onto the overhead. "Financial exhibit," she said, and the room shifted as if the floor had just remembered its weight. The header read, "Halden Mercer Ventures, LLC." The recipient was Sloane's account. The memo line, "Bridge until move-in, HLPH address." Date, "The very morning the truck idled under my windows." Silence isn't empty. It is the sound of the story reorganizing around a fact. The judge leaned forward. "Same day," he said. "Same day," Natalie answered. "The memo ties money to place and intent." I rose when she nodded. I identified the lease page that carried my name as a scan, not a live signature. I identified the email threatening my reputation. I identified the smear received by my employer. I did not elaborate. Facts, not feelings. Opposing counsel tried one last thin bridge. "Your Honor, the parties are siblings." Ms. Mercer was under significant pressure. Any improprieties were ill-considered shortcuts toward a family solution. "A solution," Natalie said, "that required ignoring policy, inventing permission, threatening a career, and preparing a lease with a scanned signature." Judge McClure closed the file and looked at me. "Do you feel unsafe around these two?" he asked again, not because he hadn't heard my answer, but because the record likes clarity. "Yes," I said. "Not because they'll hit me, because they believe they're entitled to my life, and I have no reason to think they'll stop without your order." He nodded once, decision already landing. "This court finds sufficient cause." His voice filled the cold light. "Restraining order is granted." 1 year. Radius 300 feet from Ms. Lane's residence, workplace, and person. No direct contact. All communication through counsel. Violations will be referred for criminal prosecution. He lifted the lease with 2 fingers. Further, the document presented shows signs of a forged plaintiff's signature. That matter is outside the scope of today's civil hearing. The clerk will forward the record to the district attorney's office for review. The clerk stamped. Paper clicked into place as if the whole city had been designed for this sound. Natalie exhaled without moving her shoulders. My hands found my pockets and stayed there. Carla's chin lifted half a degree. Javier smiled with only his eyes. In the hallway, wood and sun made a kinder color of the morning. We barely cleared the double doors when a reporter stepped from the column's shadow. "Ms. Lane," she said, mic lowered, voice careful. "Any comment on Caleb's financial investigation?" Her phone lit with a banner before I could answer. Breaking. State Securities Commission opens preliminary case into Halden Mercer Ventures. At the end of the hall, Darla stood with her purse gripped two-handed.
She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in weeks, my mother looked at me and had nothing to say.
The lobby door beeped one last time and then fell silent. From now on, this silence belongs to me. Carla stood beside the panel while Javier watched the glass. My code blinked on the keypad in a sequence the building would remember better than any promise. Digits, confirm, digits again. The unit gave a soft acceptance chime, the sound a lock makes when it recognizes only one name. Carla read the order aloud, clause by clause, her voice even as a level. Protected party, Harper Lane. Respondents, Caleb Lane, Sloan Mercer. Distance, 300 feet from residence, workplace, and person. Duration, 1 year from date of issuance. All contact through counsel. Violations to be referred for criminal prosecution. Each sentence landed with a small interior click, like tumblers falling into place. The outer doors parted. Caleb came up short at the threshold as the guard held a flat hand out at chest level. Sloan lingered half a step behind him, sunglasses too dark for the weather. She tried a smile that didn't touch her mouth. "We just need to drop a—" "Please step back," the guard said, polite enough to be permanent. He gestured to the sign posted on the glass. "By court order, the following individuals are not permitted on these premises." 2 names printed in clean black. No adjectives. Caleb's foot shifted forward and then back again, a movement so small it measured itself. A week ago, I would have heard my own pulse in my ears. Today, I heard only the building. Ventilation, a soft motor, a phone ringing somewhere out of sight. Noise that refused drama. Javier noted the time and sent it to the log with the same care he'd give a package. The doors sealed. The lobby light, not chandelier light, made everything honest and plain. We stood there for a moment, letting the air adjust. Carla folded the copy of the order and slid it into a clear sleeve marked ENFORCE. "If they appear again," she said, "we call it in. You won't have to say a word." She squeezed my shoulder once, quick, then added, "You did this the right way." Upstairs, the apartment received me like a room used to my weight. I set the folder on the kitchen island and opened my laptop. The news found me before I looked for it. A crawl at the bottom of a local station's site, an article on a business blog. The quick multiplication of headlines when a story catches an updraft. Preliminary securities probe into Halden Mercer Ventures. No charges. Early days. Enough words to confirm that the story I'd been standing inside of had started to exist outside of me. My inbox chimed. Compliance. I clicked and read twice. Once for content and once for the texture of it. Our review has concluded. The anonymous complaint is unfounded. We apologize for the inconvenience and for the interruption to your client engagements. Your A-list contract has been reinstated. The client has been notified. We have created a separate file to document harassment directed at you. Please continue to forward any communications related to this matter. The email stopped short of contrition, as offices do, but the reinstatement was in the subject line like a small banner coming home. I forwarded the note to my manager with a simple, "Thank you for letting them know," and then sat very still with both hands around my glass of water. Relief isn't loud. It's the sound of a mechanism releasing pressure you didn't realize you'd built into your posture. I sent a one-line text to Delaney, "Green light at work." She returned a confetti emoji and, because she knows me, the word predictable. My phone vibrated again, an unknown number softened by caller ID. Ron. I let it ring once more and then answered. He didn't clear his throat this time. "I've been quiet too long," he said. The line had the hush of a car interior, an engine idle. "Your mother and I." He stopped, tried again. "I should have said something when it mattered. I'm sorry." The word didn't crash or echo. It sat down at the table. I watched the light on the floor move a small distance toward the wall. "I hear you," I said.
He waited, maybe for absolution, maybe for a plan. I offered neither. Going forward, I said, we won't use the word family to excuse bad behavior. If you want to be in my life, respect the boundary. If not, we can be quiet. He let out a breath that had probably been trapped for years. Okay, he said. Okay. There was nothing else to add. We let the call end in that rare way where nothing is promised, and that counts as progress. Evening slouched in. I took the red folder from the island and carried it to the dining table, cleared except for the stamp Delaney had ordered as a joke and delivered as a benediction. The rubber smelled faintly of new tires. I inked it once and pressed it to the cover with more care than force.
When I lifted it, the words stayed behind in a neat rectangle. Boundaries. Enforced. It wasn't art. It was a label the future could read. The safe clicked open on the first try. I stacked the things that had made the week turn. The USB with lobby footage and elevator feeds, the sealed copy of the order with the clerk's crest impressed pale as bone. Printouts of the wire memo from Halden Mercer, Delaney's clean declaration. Paper and plastic, weight that looked like almost nothing and held a house up. Delaney arrived without knocking, the way only people who know where they're welcome can. She lifted a bottle by the neck and 2 glasses by their stems. We didn't toast big. We touched rims and let the sound be small and clear. Congratulations, she said. Your no has the law behind it. We took the glasses to the balcony. The skyline of Salt Lake City wore dusk like it had been fitted. Windows shifted from reflection to warmth. The mountains kept their indifferent angles. Down on the street, a bus sighed and started again. Up here, a breeze moved the edge of the curtain and then stopped. The last of the day slid along the rail and stepped off into the dark. My phone lit with a text from an unfamiliar number, then resolved into the reporter from the courthouse. If you want to tell your side, the investigation is up on Monday. I let the message sit on the lock screen until it dimmed on its own. Not everything needed an answer just because it had a question mark. Behind me, the apartment hummed in the same key it had before anyone decided it was theirs. I closed the balcony door and the sounds softened at once, a line drawn in glass. Delaney rinsed the 2 glasses in the sink, set them on a towel. We spoke in shorthand. We said goodnight the way soldiers say it, with eye contact, with an assumption of tomorrow. When the door clicked shut behind her, the rooms edged closer to themselves. I turned off the lights one by one until the ceilings stopped pretending at drama and were only ceilings. In the bedroom, I set my phone face down on the nightstand, and the quiet lay out beside me without asking for space. There are versions of revenge that look like public spectacle. Mine fits into paperwork and a 4-digit code. It sounds like a door that opens for exactly one person. It tastes like water after a long run. It has edges you can lean on. When sleep came, it didn't negotiate. Living in peace is long-term revenge. As the order took effect and the cameras kept their honest gaze, the pretenders stood naked. Plans in shreds. Lies pinned to the record like insects under glass, while she walked past them with the quiet of someone who won on paper and in daylight. Their leverage collapsed where it always does, at the edge of a signature they forged and a boundary they couldn't cross. When betrayal struts loudest, justice loads its evidence in silence. The moment they felt safest was the second the case locked, every timestamp a nail, every receipt a blade. And when the dust settled, it was simple. Truth doesn't bargain, it serves notice. Call it karma or case law, the slow horse never misses the address.